is 5 on 20 News with Frank Powers, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. It is Tuesday, June 27th. Let's talk local headlines. Yesterday began the trial of former Maricopa Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Federal prosecutors claimed in opening statements that Arpaio willfully disobeyed a judge's order to stop his immigration posse. His immigration posse were found to have engaged in racial profiling and other such crimes. Sheriff Joe has admitted to civil contempt, but says that he did not purposely disobey the order at all. Arpaio's defense called the case ridiculous and said he was just doing his job. Arpaio was voted out of his office in November when he was beaten by Paul Penzone. Penzone went on to remove Arpaio's infamous tent cities, which housed prisoners in tents reaching temperatures of up to 125 degrees and probably more considering that was the outside temperature. Arpaio faces up to 6 months in prison if he is found guilty. The decision is expected to be reached at least 2 weeks from now, so stay tuned for that. Arizona lawmakers aren't exactly excited about the release of the Republican health care bill to replace the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. Senator Jeff Flake tweeted that he would need to take some time to review the 142-page document, probably over some white wine and a little Vivaldi. Flake faces a tough re-election in 2018 as Arizona is quickly becoming a battleground state. On the other hand, John McCain, who normally plays a foil to the president, said he thinks the bill is a step in the right direction, which presumably leads off a cliff. McCain also said that he needs to examine the legislation before he decides which way to vote, which makes us all wonder, has anyone actually read this damn thing? Democrats were predictably disappointed in the legislation, with Republican Ruben Galeo calling it mean-spirited. Then there was Andy Biggs, who appeared to base his political opinions on what people don't want. Biggs said that the bill did not go far enough to eliminate the ACA and Medicare. He called for a clean start rather than a rewrite or a fix to the current system. Here's an idea. Take away taxpayer-funded health care for Congress. How's that sound, Andy? Arizona health officials reported nearly 200 opioid-related overdoses just last week. Out of 191, the health department says that 17 died. The information was released as part of an emergency order by Governor Doug Ducey to expand information related to opioid abuse. As part of the order, Ducey said that all opioid overdoses and deaths need to be reported within 24 hours. Ducey said that he's also working with pharmacies like Walgreens so that opioids don't get into the wrong hands. Let's look over here. Arizona received an F rating in a report by the National Safety Council. The report analyzed each state for the amount of preventable deaths, such as vehicle crashes, drug overdoses, drownings, and workplace accidents. Arizona was one of 11 states who received an F rating, while no state received an A. The safest states, according to the reports, California, Connecticut, Illinois, Maryland, Maine, Oregon, and Washington, who all got a B on the report and asked for homework at the end of the class. The report found that over 40 million people each year suffer from preventable injuries each year. Deaths from poisonings, which include drug overdoses, vehicle crashes, falls, drowning, choking, and fires, have increased 7% since 2014, resulting in over 46,000 deaths, according to the report. In addition to public shaming, the National Safety Council wants to provide a blueprint for how states can improve their safety records. Some ideas in the report include cracking down on distracted driving, passing laws to improve safety for teenage drivers, working to prevent prescription drug abuse, and improving workplace safety. Arizona lawmakers said they would immediately start on the task by easing safety regulations on corporations, providing tax breaks for the state's pharmaceutical firms, and urging parents to install a new NASCAR-themed Snapchat filter to their teenagers' phones. Fun. National and international news over here. The Congressional Budget Office released their official score for the Republican bill to replace Obamacare, and it wasn't very inspiring. The CBO found that the health care plan would leave 22 million more people uninsured by 2026, only slightly less than the House version, which the president called mean. But wasn't all bad, as the CBO predicted that the legislation would shave $321 billion off the deficit over 10 years, which is $202 billion more than the House version. The bill contains billions in cuts to the Affordable Care Act's Medicaid expansion and offers less generous subsidies to help Americans buy private insurance. Many of these savings are expected to benefit the highest earners in the country. The CBO said that the low-income Americans in their 50s and early 60s would stand the most to lose. While premiums would be lowered, the policies would cover less, meaning more out-of-pocket costs. Some Republican senators reacted to the news by wavering in their support for the bill, which aims to replace the Affordable Care Act. Maine Senator Susan Collins wrote on Twitter that she would vote no on the bill if no changes were made, although she said that she would work with the Republicans to improve the legislation. Republican Senators Rand Paul and Ron Johnson repeated their disapproval over the bill, claiming that it doesn't do enough to weaken Medicare, which they feel should be a goal of the replacement. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wants to hold a vote on the bill this week, but risks a political embarrassment if the legislation doesn't get enough votes. Republicans need only a majority to pass the legislation, but that means that they can only lose 2 votes from Republicans due to their slim majority in the Senate. Tough times. Google says they will no longer read user Gmail accounts in order to sell them targeted ads. They've been reading our Gmail account, according to an announcement on Friday. They will make the change later this year. While they won't be matching your account with advertisers, Google will still need to access the accounts to sort them by priority or suggesting auto replies. They will also continue to display ads based on what they know about their users. Google began fitting advertisers to Gmail accounts in 2014 when they updated their terms of service. You know the terms of service, that 1,000-page document that you never read, ever. The updated policy upset privacy advocates such as the Frontier Foundation, who criticized the company handing over information to private companies. Who criticized the company over handing information to private companies. But while Google makes money on a variety of different businesses, they still make, get this, 88% of its revenue from advertising in 2016. That is a lot of advertising revenue. Let's look over here. Former Brazilian President Michael Temer was charged with accepting bribes by the country's chief prosecutor yesterday. Temer is accused of taking money from the boss of a meatpacking firm, trusty, who was involved in a corruption scandal. The charges against Temer were delivered to the Supreme Court, who will now decide if the case will be sent to the lower house of Parliament. The case began when Temer was caught on an audio recording discussing bribes with Josely Batista, the chairman of JBS, the meatpacking plant. While there are multiple accusations of corruption against Temer, this marks the first official charge against the president and took over from Dilema Rousseff. Rousseff was also plagued with accusations of corruption, but she contends that she was set up by her opposition. A massive cyber attack targeted the Ukraine's infrastructure this morning, affecting government agencies, electric grid stores, and banks. The particular ransomware is called Petya and has been reported in other countries, including Denmark, creating fear that the virus might spread across the world like the similar WannaCry cyber attack last month. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security said that they are monitoring reports of the attack and coordinating with international partners. The Petya ransomware works by locking a user's computer screen and demands $300 in Bitcoin to get the computer's files back. Text on a red screen reads, "You became victim of Petya ransomware." A message then reads that there is no way to restore the computer's data without a special key. A researcher at cybersecurity for Kaspersky Lab says that this is a new ransomware that the company has never seen before. Following the attack, Ukrainian lawmakers blamed Russian agents for the ransomware hack. Typical. But NPR reported that a number of Russian companies, including state oil giant Rosneft, were also victims of the ransomware attack. The Russian government denied having to do anything with the attack. They simply said "niet." All right, it seems like that was it. That was 5 on 20 News. Stay cool, Tucson. Have a good one. Toot toot. This was Frank Powers. This was 5 on 20.